Hello, folks. This is Sam, and welcome to the Philly Sports Recap, brought to you by Sam's Community TV, creating content to build a community by creating genuine relationships. And on this episode, we're going to dive into the 8-3 Philadelphia 76ers, losers of two straight games, 126 to 132 to the Indiana Pacers, and 107 to 117 to the Boston Celtics. Both home losses for the Sixers, and one game, Indiana, being an in-season tournament loss. Now, here's what stood out to me about these games. As disappointed as I was in the loss against the Indiana Pacers, by the third quarter, I kind of saw it coming. The Sixers looked sluggish all game. I know they played Indiana on Sunday, and this was a Tuesday game, but they looked like they practiced the day before or had a walkthrough that day. And for whatever reason, no one looked fresh. Even Maxey didn't have the blow-by speed. And I have to give Indiana credit because the way they defended Maxey in that game was much different than what allowed him to have that 50-point performance on Sunday evening. They got physical with Maxey. He felt them for the whole time he was on the floor. So kudos to the Pacers. But as a team, I thought the Sixers just looked slow. So when you're playing a team that's the number one offense in the NBA, a team that has an average offensive possession of 11 seconds, I kind of felt like this might just go down as a loss for the Sixers. And with that said, they hung around in the game and they were in it in the fourth quarter. Now, here's something else I must bring up. Because, again, even understanding the loss against Indiana, I still felt like, being that it was the first game of a back-to-back, right? You have Indiana Pacers on Tuesday night, and you know you're playing the Boston Celtics on Wednesday. You thought that Nick Nurse would look at that and use this deep roster, again, down two players in Kelly Oubre for health reasons. He's recovering. And Nick Batum, who's right now not on the team for personal reasons. So you know you're down two rotation players. But again, I've lauded Daryl Morey for creating this really deep roster of professional players. And I felt like Nick Nurse still had some options. Personally, I would not have used Marcus Morris Sr. in the game against the Pacers for the two reasons I've already cited. They have the number one offense in the NBA, and their average possession is only 11 seconds. It means that they get up and down the floor. Marcus Morris Sr., in my opinion, would have been better suited in game 2 against the Celtics. I thought maybe a KJ Martin, who is yet to really get an opportunity since the trade, I thought this was the time to call his number. But he didn't do that. And we lose to the Pacers. And again, I felt like overall as a team, we just didn't have the juice. Fine. But then we go into last night's game. And I'm actually going to just start the tape as I continue offering perspective into last night's game. You know what? Let me just make this point about Marcus Morris Sr. in last night's game. In the game against Boston, it seemed very obvious to me that in the second quarter, when you had the lineup that included Marcus Morris Sr. and Pat Bev and Joel Embiid, we struggled. I'm sorry, not in the second quarter, in the first quarter. This is the first quarter when Maxey and Harris and Melton leave the game. And Joel Embiid generally plays his full 12 minutes of the first quarter. When he was playing with that bench unit, it did not look good. Granted, credit to Boston. Boston is the number one team in the East, and a lot of people believe that they are a shoo-in to represent the Eastern Conference in the finals. So we're not playing any slouches. A great defensive team. Fine. I concede all of that. We still just look bad offensively in ways that I think the defense did not dictate with that particular unit. we had shots that were available to us, but guys did not even look comfortable pulling the trigger. And it seemed like they were second guessing themselves. Maybe this is the growing pains that Nick Nurse is just saying, hey, I got to do certain things with certain guys to just build the cohesiveness. I didn't think that doing it against the Celtics, to me, trying to win the game should always be paramount. So I felt like this was a bad time to try that with a team like this. I think there are other teams in our schedule that will give you some more creativity in terms of growing the team. And I think for me, just watching it, I didn't understand why none of the other coaches could see what I was seeing. We were slow defensively, we were slow offensively, and admittedly, when we did sit Embiid and the lineup came out that supported Maxey with Jaden Springer, Daniel House, Paul Reed, that energy went through the roof. And we ended up regaining lead. We got right back in the game and regaining lead with that lineup. And at that point, I said, okay, this is not the Doc Rivers era anymore. So I acknowledge that Nick Nurse went in a certain direction with these guys in the first half. He saw what he saw. And I know that he's going to see the adjustment that is needed in the second half. And going into the half with a 1-point lead, I knew we would have been fine. Now let's roll the tape and actually see what happened. All right, now let's look at the tape. Again, this game I thought was going to obviously be a hard-fought game. There were certain things I did expect, certain things I didn't expect. And for some of the things I didn't expect, shame on me, i.e., Al Horford being a pain in the rear end for Joel Embiid again. For some reason, I thought that those days were behind us. They were not. Now, credit Boston. Jrue Holiday is my guy. And as you saw there, just took a certain situation and just took advantage. Now, I love that play by Tyrese Maxey. It was a blow by and the kick out to the corner. To me, that's just his development as a true point guard. They tried to trap us to slow us down a little bit. And I thought we did a really good job, tic-tac-toe, to beat the trap and get an easy basket. Again, a good pick and roll situation. Maxey takes advantage, misses it. And Robert Covington, to me, had one of the best games that he's ever had in the Sixers uniform. Actually, I got to table that a little bit because he was really ice cold from the 3-point line. So for him to end up with the 16 points, it goes to show you what his offensive activity was, but he still missed 5 threes. And so we need him to be able to hit those shots, especially in this offense. But again, he did a lot of things well. First half, we didn't get the offensive rebounding became a bit of an issue for us. I think, again, it had to do with now here's where things got sloppy for us. Let's look at this lineup that we have on the field, on the court right now. This is the unit that I referenced earlier. Pat Bev, Marcus Morris Sr., Joel Embiid, Pat Bev, Marcus Morris Sr. Daniel House is in the game, but these three right now together in this game did not play well. And as you can see, it just ballooned to a 10-point game. I was really shocked that we saw this lineup again in the second half of the game. I thought we saw enough to know that this isn't going to work. Again, a turnover we have a turnover here due to careless basketball. It was a simple pass that needed to be made, and we failed to do that. I think even that drive by Joel Embiid, you have Cork. Okay, hold on, folks. Hold on. Let's look at this. Let's look at this lineup. I'm sorry, folks. I went the wrong way here. Yeah, let's look at this lineup. Korkmaz, Pat Bev, Marcus Morris Sr., Daniel House, Joel Embiid. This ain't it against the Boston Celtics. Coach, 1, 2, 3, and the way Joel Embiid was playing last night, that's just not a winning formula, in my opinion. Now, I want to give Pat Bev credit because he was leading the league in plus-minus differential for players coming off the bench. But to me, games are situational. And one of the things that I don't understand about the NBA, because I see it in college, I've experienced it in college, I've experienced it at the high school level. Coach gets a read for the game and generally plays the guys that either have a hot hand or are doing what he needs them to do. It seems like that goes all out the window at the pro level, and whoever is supposed to get minutes will just get minutes. And there's no deviation from game plan. I don't understand that other than millions of dollars are being made and paid. And so the business side of the league supersedes winning at all costs. I think that there's a marriage between the business side of the NBA and winning games. And I can't be convinced otherwise. So, again, let me just acknowledge this particular unit that really did put us in a hole in this game. Now we're down 15 points. Now look at the unit that's in the game now. Covington, P-Ball Paul, Tobias Harris, and Maxey. 17-point deficit, and all of a sudden now it's down to 14. 14-point game. This team was ready to play. Look at the defensive intensity. 12-point game. 11 minutes left in the quarter. 12-point ball game. Jason Tatum had himself a ball game last night. I mean, we saw that turnaround shot all night long on Tobias Harris, and I thought Tobias Harris played him fairly well. We have an 11-point game, 10:15 left on the clock. Again, it was up to 17, if you remember. We're down to 11 in about a 2-minute stretch, so we've outscored them by 6 points. Game goes back to 13. Maxey takes it right back down the hole, back to 11. We put the pressure on them. We sped like you could just tell the energy on the floor was just different. For a little bit, I think at this point we were just exchanging baskets. I think at this point, not even there was a missed shot in the second quarter. But again, we're still an 11-point game, but the Sixers are at least 9-point game. Tobias again, ball moving. This right here by the young bull, Jaden Springer, this to me is when the game really started to turn in our favor, because it lets you know that everybody was willing to do their job. And Paul Reed hitting his first three of his career for the Sixers. I mean, we're talking about a 4-point game, and I just felt like, wow, did we really just erase that 17-point deficit and bring it all the way back to we're in a competitive game again? So you have a 4-point game. Your starters are generally back in. You still have, for Covington, this hasn't come back in yet. I still have Jaden Springer, and I thought it was a good call by Coach because he's going with the hot hand. I thought Jaden Springer was an excellent player to play in the second half or ending the first half of this game, and he played well. Derek White is a baller. I didn't really understand his value until yesterday. I will concede that Derek White is a very heady basketball player. But here we go. Sixers take the lead, down 17 to start the quarter, and we take the lead going into halftime. Good pick and roll action to start the game to get Joel Embiid in the game. Sixers up 5. Pick and roll, I think, again, Joel Embiid has to be a little bit more aggressive. That's just too easy of a scenario for Jason Tatum. Al Horford killed us. Now, let me stop it right now, because I think before that three, Al Horford hadn't made a three. So before that shot, Joel Embiid, I thought his defense on Al Horford was sound enough in terms of Al wasn't killing us. Once that 3-point shotter went in, everything changed for Al Horford. DeAnthony Melton went 5 of 6 from the 3-point line last night. And you guys have heard my comments about the production out of that two guard spot. I thought he really played well for the last 2 games. I thought he also played well against the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Maxey had a slow start. But again, when that shot went in, there were certain things that happened in the game where you realize, like, wow, this team is different. Great cut right there. Let me stop it. Great cut by Robert Covington. And the reason I want to acknowledge that cut is because in years past, when Joel Embiid is double teamed, guys don't move, right? So the double came from Covington's side. In years past, Covington will stick himself on the corner and just plant himself. And all Derek White would do was shade down and be able to play two players. But this year's iteration of the Sixers under Nick Nurse, they're taught to move without the ball. So as soon as Covington's man vacated the space, all he did was follow him and dove right to the middle of the paint. And Joel Embiid, being more of a playmaker this year, saw it and just made a quick, easy read. Real simple. Simple basketball. Credit Nick Nurse. Again, Jason Tatum had himself a ball game. And here we go. Al Horrington. At this point, he's just Jason Tatum on the ISO. Nothing you can do. The way they're playing offensively, you can't send a double because it has to come from too far away. So Tobias has to hold his own out there. He was unable to. Another play. You had to send it help because they're trying to get the ball out of Jason Tatum's hands. Al Horford makes a great play. Joel Embiid, this was a good post up. This was a good game. Let me tell you all. So let me start by just saying this was a good fought game that came down to the final possessions. And again, their star, Jason Tatum, was a star. Drew Holiday also had a great performance. He's not showing up in a lot of these highlights, but he made very heady defensive plays, a lot of timely baskets. Here we go again with this lineup. 78-73. I think we already started conceding the lead. I don't know why Marcus Morris Sr. is in the game. Again, I just don't understand it. I don't know what coach was thinking. He and Pat Bev surrendered the lead again in the second half, and it was just disappointing because it felt like the ghost of Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers was notorious for not adjusting. I mean, that was what Sixers fans had to watch game in, game out, where you just felt the game was calling for something different, and Doc would not deviate from his initial game plan. Nick Nurse this year, you feel like, was a different type of coach. And yet, for some reason, you saw Marcus Morris come out in the second half, and you were a little bit perplexed as a Sixers fan because you just figured, hey, this isn't his night. We saw enough of that in the first half. We didn't see enough, or at least he didn't see enough. And so here we go again. 5-point game. No rotation. 8-point ball game. And again, it was just deflating to everyone, the whole arena, all the air is going out. 8-point game. The young player I thought played those two guys with the effort and energy. You had Jaden Springer getting a steal and then Paul Reed getting the putback dunk. This was the lineup that was able to get us back in the game. Again, you got a 9-point game right here, 6-point game. They're playing ball though, and look at this, right on the ball. This was outstanding defense, right on the point of attack. You have a 4-point game. 4-point game. They erased that 8-point deficit, and this unit puts you back in the game. 1-point game, 88-89. With 8 minutes to go. Again, Derek White hits the three. I think there was a missed layup by Paul Reed that comes up soon. Again, Paul Reed with the putback. So you have a 4-point game. I think there was a missed layup by Paul Reed. And even still, you have a 5-point ball game. Again, DeAnthony Melton had a great night, 5 of 6. You have a 2-point game. Can't get the great offensive rebounding by Boston, but the effort and energy is there. It's there. 4-point game, 6:36 left. This unit is fighting. This unit is clawing. 6 minutes left in the quarter. Maxey hits a big three. 96-92 with 6 minutes left. And here where the wheels come off again. Now, this possession, let me go back a little bit because I got to give, Joel Embiid got the ball in a terrible spot. Know your KYP, know your personnel. That drive and kick situation that put Joel Embiid with the ball in the corner where he was given the ball as the double team was approaching him. It was just a bad position. And again, the body language and effort from Joel Embiid, not because he didn't want it, but maybe because he was tired, 3rd game in 4 nights. Everything about it was just bad. And it ended up being in a bad possession in which I thought the game got away from us from this point on. Look where he is. And Tobias Harris is out of bounds. So I think Tobias Harris kind of gave up the ball to him there. He's out of bounds, so he can't even outlet to him. So he's down another player to even outlet to. So again, it's like you're being double teamed, but there's no open player. And from that point on, Boston kind of just put their heel on this game. I was just really kind of so here's the fact. Joel Embiid had a plus minus of minus 25. That's not good. Al Horford again was just his kryptonite tonight. And I'll give Joel Embiid credit for battling, but here's where I just feel like coaching to me, I got to look at Doc Rivers, Doc Nurse, Nick Nurse, and just say, hey man, I know this hasn't been the team that you've really monitored over the last few years, but can't we read the game a little bit better? Even if our stars aren't, if they don't have that night in them, can't we go somewhere else with the basketball? Is that really not permissible in the NBA? Because it doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be very, very clear that guys who are supposed to play will play regardless of how they're playing. And I don't know if I'm a fan of that brand of basketball. And I was hoping that Nick Nurse could change that brand of basketball for the Sixers. When we battled the Toronto Raptors over the years, I've always seen him play different lineups. I think the one team that I've seen it from the most is the Miami Heat and Spo. It doesn't matter. You don't know who you're going to play when you play the Miami Heat. They play their entire rotation from game to game to game. And guys get reasonable minutes based off of how they're performing. If they're playing well and the matchup is working, he won't go away from that. He'll make the defense adjust and force him to pull them off the floor. And I'm looking at a scenario yesterday where even though I thought Boston really controlled the game, so I'm not trying to take away from Boston and make it seem that the Sixers, when they just show up, they should just beat everyone they play. But I was a little disappointed that the way we lost the game just seemed very indicative of how we played in the past. Granted, we have a lot of the same players, so that's part of it. But I just thought the coach looked like the same old coach. And it's not the same old coach. So the question is, how does that happen? What was interesting for me to hear in the post game was that Nick Nurse acknowledged that moving forward, he may look at how he uses his rotations when they're back-to-backs. How can you see that before the game? You've been an NBA coach for how many years? Why do you have to experience a back-to-back with this team for you to tell yourself, well, maybe I'll look at how I use my rotation in the future when we have back-to-backs? I don't get that. Use KJ Martin. I'm not sure of the scenario with Marcus Morris, but to use him in the back-to-back, to me, didn't make sense. But more importantly, when you see he's struggling in the first half of the game against this team, why are you putting him back out there? I didn't understand that. Korkmaz, you didn't put him back out in the second half. So for whatever reasons, you didn't do that. But you still felt compelled to play Morris and Beverly when they didn't have it that night. And I just thought Jaden Springer, his minutes should have been the first guard off the bench, in my opinion. And then use a KJ Martin, or you stay with Covington and Daniel House. I just think that you had some more options and flexibility, and you were just stuck on doing whatever you were resigned to do. And I just thought that was disappointing, and it really felt like shades of Doc Rivers. And I had to keep wiping my eyes, looking at the floor, thinking like, wait a minute, who's about to come in the game? Again, I'm a fan of the guys, but it wasn't your night last night, and I don't blame you all for your numbers being called. But I'm looking at the coach saying, protect them. Protect them. Seriously. You have other guys that might be able to do better than what they've shown you. Don't put them out in the second half so then it's exacerbated. And now everybody is looking at them with a funny eye thinking, can they even play? We know they can play. They're professional players. Just put them in better situations. So Sixers have lost 2 straight games. Offered my perspective on both losses. I'm not panicking on this team. I still think that we are suited to contend and play against anybody. 3 games in 4 nights for the Sixers. So I think that we saw the signs of that over the last 2 games. We're down 2 rotation players who play the same position but play significant minutes in Batum and Oubre. So all in all, I'm not out or down on the Sixers. I just felt that this was a prime opportunity for the coach to make the decisions that he felt he needed to make with a smaller roster available, but still being able to press buttons. And you showed that you could press a button when you saw what Jaden Springer did for you. And you played that young player because you saw what he was doing. Well, why can't you push that same button in reverse when you see guys who are just not doing what you need them to do on the court? And it was just disappointing that that didn't happen. And I just felt it just forced the team to just not have a chance down the stretch. The other piece is just with Joel Embiid, who was a minus 25 on the game. Does he have to play 36 minutes every single game? Does he have to play all first quarter and all third quarter, even if it looks like he's suffering down the stretch? Doesn't it serve us as a team to put fresh legs in there if he doesn't look fresh? If he can't get back on defense, if he's not getting down on offense? I just don't know why we just, again, do what is so prescriptive. Why can't we just read the game and make adjustments? I wish NBA coaches had the authority to just play players and make decisions based off of what the game dictated. I'm not convinced that that's true. And watching the last two games, I'm almost certain that that's not the case. So let me know what you think about my takes on the 8-3 Sixers. I still think we'll be there down the stretch. I think there's a lot of self-evaluating that needs to take place, coaches and players alike. I think we're going to end up okay. I don't think that this is going to cause the team to go in different directions just because we lost 2 straight games. I think we're going to be fine. But I do believe that we have to understand how deep of a team we are and be prepared and willing to push any button necessary in whatever situation calls for. I think if we do that, then the Sixers will be better served for it. So let me know your thoughts on this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Really need to know if this is something that you all like to hear so that I'll keep doing it. So until next time, folks, peace.